Hello and welcome to my coverage of round 5 of the candidates. It's warming up quickly and well, it was funny how time flies in this event, and there were some very exciting games as always going on today. So the pairings were behind me, as you can see. You had Giri versus Caruana. This is maybe Giri's chance to shine, and can Caruana keep going with the black pieces, playing aggressively as he has. Grischuk versus Ding. Both these players need to start scoring some wins if they're going to challenge. Alekseenko versus MVL. Alekseenko, one of the bottom markers, and MVL doing very well, so I'm sure MVL will be very interested to play something sharp in this game. Then a battle of the other two leaders, Nepo against Wang Hao, so another important game there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick my favourite game. It's personal preference. Might disagree with your favourite game, but I thought it was an absolutely brilliant game. Probably the most exciting game in the whole competition so far. And that is the game Alekseenko with the white pieces against MVL with black. Brilliant game. And then we'll have a look at the highlights of the other games and get up to date with what's happening after this 5th round. So the reason I picked this game is it was a tactical slugfest. So after e4, MVL is true to his guns, and it looks like he's going to play MVL in this tournament as black, either the Sicilian Najdorf or the Grunfeld. He's not going to change. So it's interesting to see what people have got prepared against him, and one of Alekseenko's seconds is Peter Svidler, amongst others, so he's got very good people behind him. And it did go into a open Sicilian. That is where white plays d4 in this position. And these are some of the most exciting positions you get. You get counter-attacking tactics, as we're going to see. Just the kind of chess I like. We haven't really seen any games as mad as this yet. So you're in for a real treat. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, attacking the pawn, knight c3. Now, the thing to know about the Sicilian is generally black has a better pawn structure because of having more pawns in the centre, but white has a bit more space, as we're going to see, and better development. So white can often build up a very strong attack, and black will often aim for a counter-attack. Now, a6 is the Najdorf variation, favoured by Bobby Fischer, Kasparov, Topalov, number of the best attacking players in the world, and also MVL. MVL plays this all the time. So what did Alekseenko have prepared? Well, he plays one of the sharpest lines, f3, and this is the English attack. The English attack, because he's trying to come up the board with g4 and h4. This pawn supports g4. Let's say black castles, white's going to pawn storm. And white will often castle queenside, so a real treat here. Black has two main moves. Black can play the move he played in the game, e6, which is a very flexible move. And this move is preferred by such players as Topalov. Prefers this move, and he used it to become world champion. And the other move is e5. And this move is being played by Kasparov. So it's a real sort of, what you want to play. This one's a bit more forcing. But I personally prefer the move e6. I've played this myself. I find it very flexible. It's a bit like a Dragdorf. If you know that opening, you can buy it from GingerGM shop. The idea is just to wait and see a little bit and try to get quick counterplay on the queen side. So bishop e3, white develops, and he normally develops a queen d2, castles. And now black starts his counterplay with b5. Black is not going to allow white to have all the fun with his pawn storm. Black's going to pawn storm over here. And again, fascinating positions. Queen d2. And now an important move, knight b d7. You've got to figure out how both sides are going to develop their pieces. It's clear how white is developing his. He's castling, pushing. But what's black going to do with his pieces over here? And one main plan is for this knight to come to b6 and later on to try to get into c4. And it's maybe important to play this now. You can play bishop e7, but if white now plays g4, and now you play knight b d7, you can get hit by knight c6 when your bishop will be lost. And also you have to watch out for g5 ideas when this knight will often want to come this way, but it can't do that now. So knight bd7 is the best move. And after knight bd7, now Alekseenko played a3 quickly, stopping this b4 move, which was Topalov's way of playing with black. Topalov beat Kramnik in about 17 moves with this b4 idea, and Alekseenko just stops that. The thing is, now with g4, black has that extra tempo to vacate the square, and I've played this position and I've beaten some good players of it. And now if white continues going on, this may look quite passive for black, but all of black's pieces are trying to head towards this square. Let's say white castles now. You don't come in straight away, because after bishop takes, pawn takes, you might be able to get an attack on the b file, but there's a better way to play. And the better way to play is to go knight to e5 first. And you can see this maneuver of the knight, which is very common to the Sicilian, coming back and in, is a very nice maneuver. And the knight wants to come to c4 with another knight capturing it. Let's just say a move such as h4. This is going to get very dangerous for white. This knight here is a fantastic piece. And after the queen joins in the attack as well, you have lots of interesting ideas for black in this type of position. So these are all subtleties in the opening, and after a3, well, now black says, okay, well, you're stopping my play with b4. I'm going to stop your play. I'm going to play h5. A double-edged move, but it does stop g4. It's double-edged because if black ever castles, this could be a weakness. You know, you've extended, one of your bodyguards has run away on the king side. White castles, and now black moves his bishop. It's also important to get your rook in the game in this variation. King b1, a nice safety first move. And now bishop e7, black finishing his development. Rook g1, white insists on trying to push the g-pawn anyway. And now black counter-strikes, and this is what the Sicilian is often about, counter-striking. Rook c8, bishop e2, preparing this move. Knight b6, often the square to come to, and now queen e1, just stepping out of the way of any knight jump in. And now we see the other knight coming around. I talked about this maneuver only a second ago. This knight wants to come into this square via this route, and the bishop might also join him. And again, Kasparov also used to play like this as black. He's the guy to watch for. Bobby Fischer. I mean, Kasparov learned a lot of his openings from Bobby Fischer, but Kasparov was really a modern day hero in the Najdorf and such aggressive openings as this. So it's really worth checking out some of his best victories. And now white gets on with it, g4. This has all been seen before. Pawn takes g4, rook takes g4. Positional considerations not so important now. White is trying to checkmate black's king, stuck in the middle, and black is trying to counterattack. Hence, a very exciting game. And MVL had this position before, I think even against Magnus Carlsen. And MVL before played the very weird looking bishop f8, trying to keep things controlled, but this did not work out well. Understandably, a very passive move. And he came much better prepared today with g6. And now it gets interesting. This must have been in Alekseenko's preparation. And now he sunk into thought. So I think, you know, he thinks here for, I think, 50 minutes. So was he trying to bluff? Was he trying to bluff MVL, or was he trying to remember his analysis? But now the real fun starts. Rook takes g6. A beautifully aggressive move. And I have to say, whatever you've got to say about Alekseenko, he really showed some aggression and real good spirit today. And I have to say, you know, the more I see this guy, the more I'm warming to him. His style of chess, and he seems very humble in the press conferences. MVL played his next move immediately, proving he was still in preparation. This is what chess is nowadays. It's a lot of preparation at top level. You know, you've got teams of people behind you. But this move is a really nice move. The idea is if you take the rook, you're no longer defending e6. And knight takes e6 traps and wins the queen. You may also consider playing a move such as bishop to h4 to try to give your queen this square. But now queen to g1. And again, if you take the rook, well, this is going to be a travesty with the queen diving into the attack. And white is doing extremely well here with king e7 and these kind of things. And another piece can fly in. The rook can come to g1. and this is really just game over. White's got his attack in first, and often in these double-edged positions, it's whoever gets their attack in first wins. But in the instance of the Najdorf, you've got to try to counter-attack, and now MVL plays a brilliant counter-attacking move. Rook takes c3. You hit me, I hit you. It's like two boxers just slugging at each other here. And the point of this move is, you get the c8 square for your queen, so you can take the rook in some variations, not worried about knight takes e6. Now, knight takes e6 was played immediately. White is saying, I'm just coming at you. I'm not backing down. Had white played queen takes c3, then black has knight to a4 at the moment first, kicking this queen away. And after here, you can take on g6. And even though white has some interesting compensation here, it's not yet. It's just a very unbalanced position because there's no major pieces that are getting near the black king. Yes, the knight is, but the queen can't get into it like we saw in one of the previous variations. So instead, knight takes e6. And taking this knight is now far too dangerous because after queen takes c3, it should be clear to see that this is an extremely dangerous position. Black's initiative hasn't really worked and his king is very weak. So queen to c8 is a much better move with pieces hanging everywhere. And now an amazing idea. And bravo Alekseenko. Was it in his prep or not? I don't know. Something like bishop d4 looks kind of normal in this crazy position. And even, some top commentators online, top grandmasters, were struggling to understand this position. And it really is one of those positions where you need to, where a computer will tell you the right way. Trying to work this out over the board is chaos on the board. But hence why it's such an exciting game. But knight g7 had the lovely idea that black is now forced to put the king on f8. Had black put the king on d8, white can now force his way through for a series of checks. And in these kind of attacking positions, it really is, timing is so key. Whoever has the initiative wins. And white can check on b6, now sacrifice on d6, and after something like king c7, queen g3. And this x-ray on the king is just devastating. There's no good move for black here. Even though black is a rook up, there's nothing he can do. We don't even need to take this rook. So that's why after knight g7, the king goes to f8. So has anyone guessed the result here? What's the result going to be? It's chaos. And now another piece gets ready. Rook h6. Brilliant idea. Absolutely, they're not worrying about each other's moves. They're just coming at, the king. The threat obviously is rook takes here. And if king takes this one, we've also got to remember the queen has the g1 square, and this is the end of the game for black because rook takes h8 will be checkmate. So it's an amazing idea here. So black has to get rid of this rook. Rook takes h6, and now there are a number of discovered checks with a knight, but MVL now keeps attacking himself. Rook takes c2, figuring, right, well, you can check me with your knight, but I'm going to come at your king. Look, my queen and rook are dangerously placed. My knight might be jumping in. Really heating up here. And this was an interesting moment. White now played knight to f5 check, getting rid of a key defender. Another interesting line was rook takes d6. And this is a line that Magnus actually suggested. Getting another piece into the attack. The idea is if you take that with your bishop, now knight to f5 check. And black loses, because if he goes one way, we will have a fork. And if he goes the other way, we have a queen check. It's hot stuff, this. Do pause if you need to take your time looking at the position. But after knight to a4, black is just threatening to take on b2. And it's now a move such as rook d2 has to be played. And this move's now a bit irrelevant. What have you gained? The pawn is kind of not of interest in these positions. It's the king that's of interest. So Alekseenko took on e7 and now brought his queen to h4 with check. And this is very logical. Even though Alekseenko is a piece down here, this king seems to be in the more danger, with white having 3 pieces attacking. Fortunately for black, at the moment, he has enough pieces defending. And he now plays f6. Now, knight to f6 was interesting, but MVL must have been rather scared of rook takes d6, this move again. Absolutely crazy tactics. And the point is, if you take that one, I now come in with my queen, and a lot of variations, your rook is going to be hanging. So actually, white should be winning here. And after something like knight d7, rook d2 is a very crafty idea, and black has to be very, he can just about survive this, but if you're not careful, let's say you take the rook, white's initiative continues with ideas of bishop here, at some point e5, even though you're a piece down, you have 2 pawns, and you have great play at white would here, white would be rolling. So MVL plays f6, blocking the check. And now bishop to f4 with 2 threats. Bishop takes d6 and queen to h2. So MVL is now in a real critical situation here. White is just 1 move away from finishing the game off by taking or checking. So the urgency level on MVL is high. He can't take on e2, threatening queen c2. This is too slow. This is what I'm talking about, timing. You've got to calculate if you have time. If you don't have time, you've got to get rather desperate and look for things that are, going to force the issue more. Checks, captures. Had this happened, then bishop takes d6 would most likely lead to checkmate. For example, check, check, here, here. I mean, it's very, very scary. Check, check, here, check. Now, if you come here, I come to e7, and you can see this e7 square is going to win the game. So MVL, to his credit, is up to the task. He's a calculating machine, and he plays rook takes b2, saying, you can have your go, now it's my turn. King takes b2, knight comes into a4, and all of a sudden white has to be very careful. If the queen is allowed to come in, white will be losing. So, for example, king b3, check, checkmate. So there's only one square the king can go to, and that is b1. So the black queen can't come in with check. And now knight c3, king a1, and this rook must be removed because the bishop takes d6. Knight takes d1. Really crazy stuff. White now comes in with the check. Comes in with another check. And now king e7, and they basically say, look, we've had enough fun. It's time to have a draw. And understandably, they repeat the position and get a draw, which is the right thing for both sides to do. If MVL tries to play on, his king is going the wrong way. And in the endings, this h-pawn is going to win the game. For example, I can swap off here, take here. And I've got the 2 bishops in the ending. But more importantly, your king is so far away from the h-pawn, black is in serious trouble. Had Alekseenko tried to play on, let's say after check here and take queens now, well, in this position the king is better placed. It's also defending here, and the pawn can move. And after bishop takes d1, black has knight to e5, just about starting enough counterplay. And if h4, we see the difference. Black can activate, attack this pawn, and this pawn can now be stopped by the black king. The black king gets over just in time. So a brilliant game there. I know it was only a draw, but that was my game of the day. Sometimes a draw can be the best games. Okay, now I know you did ask me to go through the openings of the other games. I will go through the first 10 moves at speed, because I want to keep this video short and snappy. Giri versus Fabiano. It seems like Fabiano has the Slav as his main weapon. And Giri played a very aggressive opening. We could see Giri being a lot more aggressive than normal. And the first bit of aggression that was showed was an idea that was played by Lupachevsky, Romanian #1 player. In the last competitive game of chess I played Lupachevsky in the English League. And the idea was, in this position that is coming up, rather than queen b3, which Fabiano said he was better paired against, white just castles queenside. And white had some excellent winning chances in this game. Giri was pushing. We're going to dive forwards to a critical position around here where Giri plays a little bit slowly with rook h2. Giri miss is the winning idea. Queen b2, not threatening the knight yet, but this puts the pressure on. And after something like rook h5, we can actually put our rook on f1, and the pressure is mounting. And the point of this is, if something like d4, bishop g6 is a winning way to break through, and the rooks come in the game and black's king is helpless. In the game, Giri could have done the same idea again after rook h2, rook h5. And again, he could have gone rook f2 with the point that we're playing bishop g6, again winning. Instead, rook e2 was the move he played, but after d4, Fabiano managed to get enough counterplay and the game ended in a draw. So it's really just missing this idea in a lot of positions of bishop g6, which would have won the game for Giri. The game ended in a draw. The next game, Grischuk versus Ding Liren, was quite an interesting opening. It was a main line Rule Lopez, with black playing this pawn sacrifice. Both players seemed to be quite well prepared, and this was a bit of a sideline that Grischuk played. So we'll go through the first 10 moves very quickly. And it's the Rule Lopez opening, and this game also ended in a draw. This d5 move becoming quite popular now. You might have heard I mentioned this previously in another thing. And this game, okay, wasn't so exciting, but it was quite a long game. Draw, fair result. Now, Nepo had a great game, and Nepo won with white. And I've given a result away, but we're only doing a roundup of the other games. And he beat his joint leader. So Nepo is now in the lead on his own. And it was a Petrov, so this variation got a very drawish reputation. But Nepo kept a little bit of pressure on in this symmetrical position, of course, by using the H-pawn. And he did some clever ideas. This supported his attack against H7. I've used this kind of plan in many blitz games you might have seen. And then later on, watch this knight. This knight is the winning piece. Black should just about be okay in these positions, but this knight is very strong. There's ideas of this check. And after this combination of these two pieces, black was under a little bit of pressure. Again, black might be holding this, but things got very bad. Maybe not the best move. King f1 might have been better there. But things got very bad later on. Again, this h-pawn, as we've seen many times, gets a very strong hold around the black king. And the point of this idea is if knight takes c4, well, now the queen will come in, I think, with queen h2. And there's no way for black to adequately stop the white queen coming to these squares. There's only one check. So this was the idea that Nepo came up with. King g8 was played, but after some more moves, white gets his queen into the position. Black might still be okay here if he takes on d4, but he went passive. And now after queen h8, you can see the h-pawn has done a lot of damage. And we had now ideas of checkmating coming in. And the killer idea now, after repeating the position once, was queen d8. And this threatens the knight and threatens queen d6, checkmate. So this is a winning position, and Nepo won. Great play from Nepo, who was looking pretty awesome. And he was my tip before the tournament. He was 18-1. So had you put £100 on him and he won it, you would have got 1,900 back, including your original stake. So I wish I'd bet on him now. So the results before were as such, but there's no change there, except, of course, Wang Hao has dropped down. So he's now in the group with Fabiano Grischuk. And there's one guy at the top. I haven't got results after the round, but it's Nepo. Nepo is leading. Nepo is now in lead at the candidates. Can he qualify? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Please do like and subscribe to my channel. It does help. Thank you so much. And I will be back again tomorrow with my roundup. Cheers. Goodbye.